Peace, everybody. Greetings. Welcome to Community Radio. I'm your host, Kim, and we are back with another live segment. Today is Tuesday, the 11th. And wow, I mean, the year is really starting to fly by really fast. So today, again, I come to you with another segment. Before we get started, of course, I want to go over some announcements and just some information on how to get in touch with us and how to get some information that you need. So just as the commercial that I just played announced, we have several different components to Nation. Enlightenment and transformation is, of course, the media component of Nation. So you can find all of our archived shows, all of the, from the Thunderground Thursday, Foundational Friday, and New Asafo, all the shows that we do up in, even the ones we do now, they are all archived there under Enlightenment and Transformation on YouTube, and also under the website under the same name. So you can just go to enlightenmentandtransformation.com. We also have Sadulu House, which is the school component of our New Nation. And this is where you can go to sign up for the Orisha training, the free Orisha training, phase 1 of the New Spiritual Training. And you can sign up for the classes that I teach, which are about different components of spirituality. So whether it be, how to work with water, how to work with candles, how to pick and choose herbs, how to make and combine oils. All of those classes are there, and the list is growing. So make sure you go there to check it out. You can also check out my website, seriousbitch.com, and you can also sign up for classes there. I also have some ritual work that you can purchase there as well. So if you need information on rituals, or if you need rituals done on your behalf, you can schedule that through my page, seriousbitch.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook under the same name, SIRIUSBITCH.com. Okay, so I also kind of want to address some of the customer service questions that we get in. One thing I would like to say is that when you send us an email, make sure that you don't have us blocked so that we can't respond to you. So I've had some more emails like that to come through. I can't get back to you. So, again, make sure you check out our channels, A New Nation, Enlightenment and Transformation on YouTube and on the internet. If you just want to get some basic information about, how to get a reading, how to sign up for classes, and things of that nature. I also want to remind you that if you would like to get involved with some of the things that we have going on, that you can volunteer on anewlifeglobal.org. And when you go there, there's a form that you can fill out where you can explain what it is you do or what it is you would like to do to contribute your services to the movement. And you can also sign up for the new female students that are coming in, or if you are taking classes or something, you can sign up for our weekly hangout. We do like a Google Hangout every Monday. And when you fill that form out, make sure you specify that that's the list that you would like to be added to. I've had some women to email me personally and ask or whatever, but we really like to get you on the list so that if we have like an announcement or something that goes out, that you're included. But we do those meetings every Monday, and this is just to kind of support each other. If we have some, female stuff that we need to talk about, or any issues that are going on, as well as any concepts that are taught in the classes or through any of the shows. If you have any questions, all that kind of stuff, all the women, we have a special call for you on Mondays. So that's that. I just wanted to get some of that out of the way because we still get some of those questions. So today, again, if you would like to call in and start the conversation, to kick us off, the number is 347-945-7680, and you can just press the number 1. I'll make sure I'll get you in. And so today, I entitled the show, Get Initiated Today. And it's not the type of initiation you're thinking. I didn't mean to, be facetious in that title, but the type of initiation I'm speaking about is something that we talked about on the call last night. So before I get into it, let me just say peace to those women that were on the call yesterday. We had a really good conversation. Before I get into what I was going to talk about, someone has their hand up already. Let me go to them. 615.
Greetings, Sister Kim. What's going on?
Peace. How are you?
I'm all right. What was I didn't want to allude. I was listening to what you were saying. I thought you was gonna finish what you were saying first.
Oh, but, okay. I was just trying to get you in. I saw your hand up.
Okay, because like I had a topic that we was actually just discussing a second ago, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow that you had. The question that I had posed are black people and are black people, especially women, are we at a place where we can accept healing?
Where we can accept
like,
what?
Healing.
Like, healing?
Healing. Like,
oh, healing.
Okay, because me and his sister was discussing Eldridge Cleaver book, and it talked about how he really, didn't like black women, and how Kathleen was like, well, he would disrespect and rape black women and stuff. And the gist of the book was pretty much about how black men really ain't as pro-black as they say they are when it comes to women. They would much rather prefer the light-skinned black woman against the dark-skinned black woman. And I asked the sister, I'm like, I see where you're coming from, that we really need to address. And, like I said, at some point we're going to have to create a space for healing by just having to come to Jesus meeting about it and talk about it. But what's the end result of the discussing it? Like, can black people really truly handle coming together about an issue, getting out your feelings? If we got to go outside and roll around and fight and roll in the dirt, get all the emotions out of the way, and handle the issue, let it go, and go on to something else. Because black people have never been in a position to where we could unlearn the eugenic tactics against us. So, and I told her, I was like, look, I have a show where we talk about this, where we have the Come to Jesus meeting. We state the problem, we state everything we can't stand about each other. Then we have a section of the show where we apologize to one another. Cause like I said, I told her, I apologize to you for what Eldridge Cleaver said and did. I'll be the first to apologize, because that's fucked up. I mean, that's messed up. You don't treat people who down with your struggle and believing in you like that. Would be a subconscious or whatever, but you just don't do that. So first, I would like to apologize to all the black women that's pissed. Like, I understand. Now, this is the issue we have with y'all, and have that type of open forum. And she was like, we need to educate, yada, yada, yada. I said, okay, we have shows for that. That we have, access to public television. When are we going to physically do it? And once we get to that point, can black people actually handle the relief of not having that black men ain't this, black women ain't that gripe? Is that possible within our lifetime?
You know what? It's interesting that you brought that up, because that's kind of what I was going to talk about today with the initiations. I wasn't going to speak on initiations into African spirituality per se, but last night during the call, like I was saying, every Monday we have a call where, the new women that are coming into our new teachings or whatever, we get together and we talk about different things. And one of the things we talked about last night, and this is where the initiation comes in, is the different phases of womanhood and manhood, and how you can design for your own family or for your own lineage initiation rites into each stage. And we also went into, how can you recognize these stages? What are the stages? And how can we support each other through those different stages? Because, in American culture, you just grow up. You got, 18, you graduate from high school, 21, you can drink. That's pretty much it. You know what I mean? So there are no steps into different stages of womanhood or manhood, or what you're expected to do, or how, what are the biological changes, how do you cope, is there support through these stages, and so forth. um, One of the women and I were speaking about just elder women, for example, some women that we knew that were in that crone stage of womanhood, and who just really don't know how to, cope. We have this thing where they say 20 is the new 30. Everybody's regressed 10 years back, and no one wants to settle into the stage that they're actually in. So grandma doesn't want to be grandma. She still want to be the hot chick. You know what I mean? She's busy trying to stay fit, trying to stay fine, instead of settling into that stage of her life where she's supposed to have a certain type of wisdom that she can pass on to other women, and so forth. It just kind of goes down the line, not just, that particular stage. And then we talked about the psychological damage of what that does, and how so many women, when they get to this stage, are dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's and, things like this, just these different mental illnesses, because we don't know our roles anymore, or we're trying to regress back to another time when we thought we had it going on or something. You know what I mean? So it's like, and then the same thing goes for men. So I was looking up, we were discussing those phases for women, and we have, the maiden, the mother, the enchantress, and the crone. And then I was looking for those phases for men, and I couldn't find anything as definite. I found it 3 stages of manhood, 5, 6, 7, 8, nothing was really defined. And so then I started to try to find cultural definitions of the same thing. Because, of course, these 4 stages, 5 stages, whatever they are based on somebody's culture. So I'm looking up African, rites of passage and African stages of manhood and things like that. And everything is different as well. So I was just thinking, okay, do we need to start, just for your own family or for your own community, your own phases of manhood and womanhood? What are the initiation rites? How do you initiate people into, that are in your family or in your community, initiating them into those different stages? And I said, this type of initiation is more important than trying to get initiated into African spirituality. That comes later. We got to get, like you were saying, character, responsibilities, emotions, all this kind of stuff. We got to deal with all of that kind of stuff first before we can even start to think about being initiated into some spiritual tradition that we have no clue about. You know what I mean? We want to be initiated and get elecades and all this kind of. We don't have any clue about the culture. We don't speak the language. We don't know the food. We don't know the customs. We don't know anything about it. But that's the first thing that we want to do. And so during that discussion, like I said, we were just talking about those different phases, why it's not defined, how do you just create certain groups to support each other through those phases, and what's involved in those phases. Because, for the most part, you hear about, people having midlife crises and, all these other things. But the reason why this stuff happens is because there's no defined rite of passage for each, stage of your life. Like I said, pretty much you got 18 and 21. And I think that would help ease some of the stuff that you were talking about, Future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense because, we had an issue with one of my brothers I'm working with about some land. And, pretty much it was about how they was trying to figure out if he was sovereign or not. And he was like, why would they ask me that? We went from talking about farm animals to being sovereign. What does me being sovereign have to do with owning land? I was like, because, and they asked, but they asked him something very specific. They said, sovereign society. And he was like, no, but he said there are things I'm trying to get away from. And he said, why would they ask me if I was part of a society? I said, because as part of a society, if you're sovereign by yourself, you can't get loans, you can't technically have a valid driver's license, you can't. It's a lot of financial stuff you can't do without a social security number or a birth certificate. But if you have a society that funds themselves, so let's say me, you, a Masonic brother, retired NBA football, a retired NFL player, a retired police officer, and a retired lawyer, all develop a SUSU where we put in $50 a month, $50 a week into the SUSU, and then each week it builds. So then, after 5 years of that, we'll have enough money to borrow against a loan. So now we're not just a society. We're not just a bunch of sovereign people. We're technically a nation within a nation that governs ourselves. So when you govern yourself, you can police yourself. So whatever land you're sovereign on, the United States don't have jurisdiction over it. So, and I was like, that's why they asked you that. Because if you're part of a society, you're part of a support system that they can't just exploit. And I said the reason that stuff works is because they have a spiritual system that they fall back on to keep everybody honest. That's what the spiritual system is for. The spiritual system isn't the culture. The spiritual system is the safety net for the culture. So if these, and the sad part about it was brown-eyed people doing it. They was like, who you with? What you doing? It was the, I call them the Sambos. It was the, the Steffens that was giving them the most slack. So I'm like, once you got a system of support and there's a spiritual system that backs that and keeps everybody honest and protects those individuals, then now you can't just do whatever you want, because now not only are you dealing with a sovereign group of people, you're also dealing with a group of people who's backed and supported by a deity that they have either created or they work with to keep them functioning outside of what y'all are doing. And that's what had them the most intimidated. So my question to the sister was, okay, look, we understand it's plenty of stories where black women have been mistreated by black men. You got The Color Purple, Beloved, The Help, all these different movies, Precious, where the black man is just a villain. What love got to do with it? Black men it's easy to vilify a black man. So if you go around spreading more rhetoric, well, Eldridge Cleaver wasn't what he was. Huey Newton was a agent. All of them mistreated Angela Davis, yada, yada, yada. They won this, they won that. Okay, where do we go from there? Okay, we understand that they were agents. So how can we build a society that's self-sufficient and pull ourselves up from the bootstraps if we beefing with each other internally? At what point do we deal with that? Because we can't go forward if you beefing with your woman. You just can't do it. And is that something that black women want to even solve? Is that something that they just want to keep in their back pocket and be like, well, you remember when we was in the 60s and y'all was beating us? Or you remember in the 90s when y'all was calling us bitches and hoes? You remember us in 2000 when y'all just started fucking men all together? Is that is that a pain that we want to hold on against each other? Or is it something that we really, really, truly deep down want to solve? That way we can actually be that sovereign nation within a nation that has spiritual support from the ancestors that which we venerated, that watched all of that. That was my question to her.
And how does she answer?
The same stereotypical stuff. Oh, well, we need education. We want to deal with women all over the world. I'm like, well, women all over the world ain't suffering from the same things y'all suffering from. Why you keep outsourcing your energy for it? Because we're all the same, and that's what's wrong with black men. Black men always trying to tell us what to do. I'm like, that's what we're talking about. Because you keep outsourcing. The second you feel that you're healthy, now you want to go help women in Malaysia who don't think nothing about you other than to buy their hair. The Muslim women don't care nothing about what black American women are going through. They don't really care. And it's a small percentage of them that actually is concerned about, what the Sharia law or whatever. That's a small percentage of them. And the other percentage of Muslim women don't really, quite as kept, don't like to work. They don't want to work because they don't feel that's what a woman should have to do. That a real royal woman don't want to work. Like, that's not nothing that's high on her priority list. So you're dealing with a race of people who don't have a culture outside of yours, who don't have a similar culture as yours, and what you're trying to establish,
Right.
they're going to overthrow anyway once they get to the point to where they don't need you. So, are black people, the conscious community, are they really about healing and correcting the problem, or does it just sound, or does the rhetoric sound good for them to sound different than people who listen to Lil Wayne and go to concerts and stuff? Do you want to be different or do you want to be effective? Like, which one is it? Because it's starting to get kind of silly.
Yeah. I think you brought up a lot of different points. One of the ones I caught was that one of the things we got to do is just agree upon a common culture, because the culture kind of gives us the norms and the rules of how men and women should behave first. If we can't agree on that, we get the situation that we're in, just kind of anything goes. So I think culture, agreeing upon a common culture is one of the first steps. And then again, like we were talking about last night, separating our learning. The men have to learn separate from the women. I was with my daughter the other day, and I was driving by our mosque, and I was just telling her about when I've gone to mosque a few times with a friend of mine, and when I was younger, and I was just telling her how when you walk into the mosque, how everything is separated. The women go on one side, the men go on the other side, and how you have, just groups of women who kind of, talk with each other, and the things, women talk amongst each other and the men talk amongst each other. The teaching is separated. And, I was explaining to her why that's important, and can she imagine, what education would be like if, from children we were brought up that way, and just different pros and cons of learning separately, learning things separately. So I think that's a huge part of it, because first of all, we approach problems and we approach things differently. Men are solution-based. Women, are emotional. We react emotionally first sometimes. And we just learn things in a completely different way. And the things that we learn are going to be completely different. So, again, our developmental stages have to kind of match up too. That's why I was saying it was interesting when I was looking up the different phases for men and women. Men have different stages, women have different stages, but they almost have to kind of align, because at some point we have to mate. We have to get together and have families and things. So to have a clear, defined type of initiation or rite of passage, or something that's clearly defined that says, when you're this age, this is what happens. When you're that age, this is what happens. Those phases are outlined. And you have different, like I said, with women, you have, the elder women that can kind of check all the younger women and say, like when things are off, or just women who are in different phases. When things are off with us, when we're just completely off and emotional and everything, like your man doesn't necessarily want to hear all that, because you all are solution based. So you're just going to try to figure out, okay, what's the problem? Let's fix it. Boom, be done with it. But sometimes our problems may not even need to come to you, because it can create a problem. Like if you go to your woman, you have a plan to do something, and she's feeling like this ain't gonna work. How could you do this? You need to do it this way, blah, 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 blah. Before she goes off at that man saying that, there should be a support base of women that she can go to and express that nervousness that she may have about whatever was just presented. Because if she displays that to her husband may look at her like say that's disrespectful. How can you disrespect? How can you be so doubtful and mistrustful to me? Like, to a man, that's like betrayal. Like, you don't trust me.
Yeah, whose team are you on?
Yeah, you don't trust me.
Whose team are you on?
Right.
But
so
you know what though? Go ahead. You just made me think of something. Go ahead.
If you had a group of women that you could go to and say, how should I deal with this? I'm not sure about this. A wiser woman can tell them how to deal with that, how to deal with those emotions that she may be feeling around that, so she can calm down and be okay with it, instead of going to her single girlfriend that doesn't have a man, or her mother or sisters who are bitter about men that encourages her, girl, you ought to just leave, and you get all this bad advice. But if you have a culture and some rules and some norms in place, you can actually go to another woman that actually has some sense to to give you some advice about how to deal with things. And I think that's what we're missing. We're missing those things. We have like cooking classes and Zumba classes and all these other things where we kind of can learn different hobbies or learn different things, but to just have that overall cultural support where we understand our roles, we don't necessarily have that. And we need those types of things, those types of societies where we can kind of bond with each other and help each other through it, because I think that would also cut down on a lot of the cattiness and hate between women, because for the most part, we're really competitive, and it has to do with trying to secure resources. We talked about this once before. We don't want somebody to get something somebody else has or whatever. Or we feel like we're not going to be supported, or we're not going to be liked, or we're not going to be loved if we do A, B, whatever the case may be. So you need that. And then, men need that as well. You all have some of the similar things, like you can go, to different clubs. You have Masonic lodges, you have different things like that. And women have like Eastern Stars. I don't know what either of those societies really do. But I think it's just really important. I think that would kind of help deal with some of the issues that we may have. And so before we can talk about spirituality initiations, like that's something that you can do, that you can sit down with another group of men or a group of women that you can do, and you can actually design initiation procedures and things like this for each phase of those things, and kind of hold each other responsible and create little groups around. I know Chief used to do initiation. Right, he did a rite of passage thing for years. So I don't know if he'll ever speak about that specifically, like the specifics of it or whatever, but I think that will help, like, tremendously. Let's see, I'm going to go to... Go ahead. I'll go to the caller after you finish.
Yeah, we need that. But like when you was talking, how the Muslim brothers and sisters, how they, you have different teaching communities. The first thing I thought about was football practice. When you go to football practice, you have offense, defense, special teams. Offense, quarterback, offensive line, receivers, running back. Defense, defensive line, linebackers, DBs. All of them are taught separate. The DBs, they don't know anything about defensive line technique, but they just know that those defensive linemen are going to plug the gap, hold the tight end up, give them time to get over the top of it. All right? The receiver don't know nothing about offensive lineman blocking. All they know is either 3-step or 5-step and the ball coming out. The quarterback don't know nothing about nobody's technique. He just know his reads. 2 safeties high, we're going underneath. 2 safeties playing down in the box, we're going over the top. We know all of that. Now, what happens at the end of practice is offense and defense come together, and they come together as a unit. Okay, y'all are good at this. This is a hurry-up offense, so y'all defensive line, y'all got to stay in shape because this is how we play offense. Okay, if we want to win, we got to be off the field in 3 snaps. That way y'all can keep the ball. So defense don't know nothing about what's going on in the offensive huddle. All they know is come downhill, don't get too far upfield, wrap up and tackle. That's all we know. That's all we know how to do. Linebackers, we gonna fill the gap. But what makes the team a winning team is when offense do their job, defense do their job. That's the only way we can win. So like what you were saying about how, the men and women have to start becoming a little bit more separate. It's the same thing with the military. The military, the Navy don't know nothing about how the Marines train. the Navy just know that when they have Marine support, this is what they can do now. So that's something that we really gonna have to like start to deal with, because like I said, at some point, men gonna have to start their own support group. What y'all got? We're gonna have to do that. And like I said, I'll be the first to advocate. I have a full radio station at my disposal. So if anyone would like to have a forum on how we can start correcting the problem, because I know that this is something men are gonna have to fix. The women not gonna fix this. We have to do that. So in order for us to do that, we have to come to a point where, okay, yeah, we all different. We might like light-skinned women because we might have come from a light-skinned tribe. So it just might be a whole thing why we like that. Or y'all come from a darker-skinned tribe. We don't really know. So let's get to the bottom of it. Let's fix the in-house stuff and then come together at the end of practice and talk about how we can win together. So I would be the first one to advocate a forum for that. Anybody would be interested.
Okay. Well, first of all, I know Chief is working on something for the men. I don't know if it started yet. I don't know the details on it. But how do you think, like how you broke down football, how do you think that can translate into initiation rites and different things for men? Like how can you take that model and transfer to a model for the different phases of manhood? Like, are you familiar with the different phases of manhood, or anyone on the call? Like, can anyone agree on the phases of manhood?
I mean, well, from what I've understood with the men around me, the first aspect of becoming a man is actually knowing when to shut up. How far can your patience be tested without you reacting? So I think we're gonna have to start training little boys to not be so fascinated with what girls think. Like, stop worrying about that. Be more purpose oriented. So there's a group of challenges. Like I forgot what movie that was, but it was a movie about the sit-ins in Greensboro, and before they could go and sit in, they would have to go through a training phase where they were insulted. You know, look at you, colored boy.
That.
You remember that?
I can't remember the name of the movie though. Yeah,
but you know what I'm talking about. You know, we're gonna have to do something similar to that. How is your? I think Chief, you had called it your integral structure. How much discomfort, both how much social and emotional discomfort can you withstand? Like, how emotionally fragile are you? You know, how mentally fragile are you? You know, I think that's the first thing that young boys are going to have to realize. I think young boys are too caught up with women, too fascinated. Well, you're too worried about what women got, what the women that you can get. How long can you go without worrying about somebody else? That ain't got nothing to do with you. You know, that's the first thing about being a man that I was taught. Stop worrying about stuff that ain't got nothing to do with you, and stop reacting to people's mess too quick. Like you worry, you let people get to you too quick. So I think that's a phase that you go from that war, you go from the soldier, you go from I think the stages of manhood, and I hope the other brothers, you know, can chime in. But you start off as the puppy, the curious puppy, then you the juvenile, testing the limits of your mortality. Then you realize the limits of your mortality and you want to test it. You know, you become the fighter. Like, I want everything to challenge. I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. So you go from that fighter phase to the warrior phase. What am I fighting for? What am I doing? What's the point of all of this? Then from the warrior phase, you turn into the what's it called in the Kama Sutra? Where what is the eligible bachelor called? The statesman. I think it's called like the statesman or something. Or he's an eligible bachelor. You become the eligible bachelor. You done got your fighting out the way. You done got your warriorship out the way. You actually driven in what you're supposed to be doing. So now I'm at the point where it's time for me to find someone that will help me on this larger mission. So you go from, I guess, the Romeo to the actual Prince Charming, where you're actually doing it. You know, you're actually being a husband. And from the husband, you go from husband from that point to mentor. And then you go from mentor to elder. That's
Okay.
the stages of manhood to me, from what I understand.
Okay. Now, I did a little research, but like I said before, and I was trying to find some information. And for men, I came up with they have birth, adulthood, marriage, elderhood, and then ancestorhood. I also found, I think Carl Jung said the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. Someone else said boyhood, warrior, lover, king, and then the sage. So again, it's not as clearly defined. I think
got the rebel too.
I think yeah.
You got the rebel too.
Would that be considered the warrior? Do you go through that stage when you're going through the warrior phase?
A warrior fights for a purpose. A rebel just fights for himself. Like I'm just gonna rebel against what man. Forget everybody. I don't know what you talking about, but that don't make no sense, and I'm not doing it. So I think that's more of a rebel phase, a rebel without a cause. A warrior like, okay, I don't like how these people are getting treated in this community. Let me go run for office. Now that's warrior stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so again, like Dietrich was saying, hopefully some of the men on the call will chime in. The number is 347-945-7680. And we are speaking about initiations into different phases of life. I'm going to go, Dietrich, to someone that's had their hand up. 443. Greetings.
Greetings, y'all. How y'all doing?
Peace, Tasha. How are you?
Good.
Greetings.
I'm sorry. Hey, I missed the call again last night. My schedule is like so crazy right now. I'm at home again. Actually, the system was down at my job, so I'm just at home trying to get these crochet orders out, which it all worked out because now I can do my real business today. But anyway, I'm really enjoying the topic today, as I do all the time. Dietrich, you always just hitting us in the head with like some good stuff, so I love that too. I think the initiation process for women, and of course more specifically women of color, I think it's a lot more complicated than the rites of passage for the men, because of all the things that you just talked about, Dietrich and Sister Kim, just the inner turmoil, and quite frankly, the hurt that we've had from our own men, from white men and white women. You know what I mean? Like we've gotten it on all fronts. And I think that, yes, it does have to be attacked from the inside. And, y'all know what I'm about to say. It starts almost always with the family. And like the last call we were on last strong, when, my husband and I got to talk to Chief, which was excellent. Like we're still talking about that show. The family mission statement. And I think we talked about this on our women's call a while back. We have to get that solidified. What is it that we're doing? What is it that we stand for here? That needs to be done so that both the young girls and the young men within the house know their roles and know, what their timeline is. Okay, I'm 15 now, so I should be doing this, and this. Whether it's, like Chief said, with his children, by 15, I need a business plan. That doesn't have to be across the board for all of us. It could be something completely different, but nonetheless, something needs to be set in stone that this is what we do. And I think it would make it a lot easier for the new generation that's coming up to say, okay, I'm not confused. I know exactly where I'm headed. I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing at this time in my life. The next thing is, as far as the whole, with certain men not liking black women or not liking dark women and all of that. And even for us as women, black women saying, you know, we're kind of done with black men. We're going over on the other side. You know, we're about to be down with the swirl or whatever. You know, yeah. I think that our men really, y'all have to be patient with us because, like I said, it's so, that wound is still so open and it's so deep and it's so internal, not for the individual woman, but just within us as a people. You know what I mean? And I'm going to tell you how deep-rooted it is, again, with my family stories, but that's the only way I can get it across. So our daughter is very, very fair-skinned because my husband's very fair-skinned. She has hazel eyes. Before she cut her hair real short, she had, you know, wavy hair and, you know, all of that. And prior to me having her, I had that complex of, you know, here I am a brown girl. Both of my sisters are very fair-skinned. I'm the only dark one. And being treated differently. Yeah. You know what I mean? So now I'm growing up and not necessarily thinking that I'm less than because, you know, I always thought I was fine. But
yes, we know. We know that is intact with Sister Tasha.
You know, not necessarily thinking less of myself, but just like, dang, why can't everybody else see how fine I am? You know? Yeah. And low-key having that resentment against lighter-skinned women. And so I had to really go deep inside myself once I had my daughter because, of course, you know, she comes out and I'm holding her and I'm thinking she's the most perfect person in the world. You know what I mean? You better not say that she's less than that. So now I have to go inside myself and say, I can't think like this anymore. Because the very thing that I had beef with is in my arms right now. She looks like the stereotypical bougie light-skinned chick. You know what I'm saying? The long wavy hair, the hazel eyes, the whole package. You know what I mean? And now that she's older and she's pretty much off on her own, in 2016, she is getting that flack. Yeah. Where a lot of her friends that she has now are like, you know, I almost didn't even talk to you because I thought, you know, you were bougie, or, you know, I thought you weren't down for the cause. And she's like, I'm the most revolutionary chick. You know what I'm saying? Like, please don't let the skin tone fool you. Like, I'm definitely down. You know what I'm saying?
Whatever that means. Right.
Whatever that means. You know? But she's constantly having to prove herself. So, I'm saying for the men that just be patient with us because we got to iron all that out within ourselves. That's where the women's societies come in. That's where the Monday phone calls are good for, all of that stuff, you know. And then finally, us as women have to really and sincerely work together with no hidden animosity, no jealousy, no, you know, oh, well, she thinks she cute because blah, blah, blah. No, like, I'm here for you, like, for real. You know what I'm saying? And stop shutting off, because I think it was Sister Clarissa one time we were on the call and she was like, you know, it's not even a lot of elders who can guide us and show us the way, which, you know, I agree with her in the sense it's not like how it was in our parents' day, you know, where you can go to Big Mama down the street and she can, you know, talk to you and guide you through some things, but they're there. They're definitely there. And I've run into 2 in my lifetime, and out of those 2, neither one was my mother. They were just older women that, I mean, damn near saved my life because I was about to make real crazy decisions, and they really just sat down and kept it real with me, and they didn't sugarcoat anything, and they were just like, no, you about to make a big mistake. How about you approach it like this? You know, and thank goodness I wasn't so up in my own ass that I was like, well, this old lady don't know what she's talking about. I'm going to go ahead and do it like this. You know what I'm saying? I listened, and it saved me, and it saved my family. So I say to the women, yes, you know, some of us, you know, are in the six-figure bracket. Some of us are single. Some of us say we don't need a man. Some of us say we can, you know, I can do this all by myself. No, you cannot.
Right.
No, you cannot. On paper, yes, you totally can.
Yeah.
But as far as the family dynamic and as far as you as a woman, no, you cannot. And those elders and us coming together as women will sharpen our skills to pick the best suitor for us and to start a family. Or if we already have children, pick the best suitor that will gel well with our children and start a family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know, even as I'm listening to you talk, I'm trying to highlight a few points that I'm thinking about. And the first thing I wanted to say was just about the whole, you know, light skin, dark skin thing. Like, honestly, as an adult in 2016, I just really, especially when it comes to men, I just really didn't even think that this was a huge issue anymore. You know, I you know, being a teacher, I've seen it in the classrooms where, you know, people are still calling each other African, you know what, scratches and all this other kind of stuff. And I see like the hatred of just being black. But I just honestly, you know, every now and then I might hear it, you know, the whole light skin, dark skin thing. But I don't hear it as much as I used to, say, you know, when I was growing up, because I'm a dark skinned girl. So, of course, I got it from, you know, my parents' generation and all that. But I didn't think it was still, you know, as an adult woman, I didn't think that men really had a serious preference like that anymore. I thought it was just, you know, I didn't think it was that big of an issue. Another thing you were saying.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say another thing you were saying was about, you know, just having, you know, those elder women to teach you and it not being your mother. You know, we talked about that on the call last night as well. And we were just saying, you know, the importance of, again, going back to those women's societies, having your daughter surrounded by other women just so that they can figure out who they are. Because I know, like, you know, like you said, from our generation, for the most part, parents kind of raise their kids to be like a carbon copy of themselves, you know, and to try to live out their karma through their children. So, you know, or live out their wishes, you know, through their children. And I think it's so important that, like, young girls are around different types of women so that they can figure out who they are and they're not, you know, saddled with trying to be their mother or feeling like they fail because their mother's telling them, you know, you're not like me. Like, something is wrong with you because you're not like her. You know, I think that's really important because, you know, again, like you said, you have a lot of women who may not be your mother to give you some wise advice. Not saying that, you know, you have to completely disregard your mother, but there may be some areas that she's weak in that other women may be stronger in. And to have that influence as a young girl is really important, you know. As far as, you know, men being patient, you know, with black men or black women who are swirling and all this other kind of stuff, you know, there are movements out there now. Is it men going their own way, women going their own way, where we're all just kind of fed up with each other and we're choosing to date internationally or outside of our race. And you have arguments on both sides of why black women feel like they shouldn't date black men, and why black men feel like they shouldn't date black women or American black women. And it's like both sides are completely fed up with each other. So, you know, like Dietrich said, you know, when does the healing begin? Are we just completely done with each other? Because I remember reading an article once where they were just talking about, you know, what the future race of people are going to look like. And it's that kind of racially ambiguous look where you don't know if they're black, you don't know if they're white, you know, it's just this kind of mixed kind of look. And that's a result of, you know, everybody just kind of mating, you know, with different races and things like that. So is that something that we're coming up on? And, you know, for the most part, when I listen to these interviews of black men who are just completely frustrated with black women, I don't know if it can be fixed. You know, are we just about to become like this extinct race of women, you know, as far as American black women go? Or, you know, how are we going to correct it? Or do we even care to correct it? Are we so far gone, or do we hate each other or dislike each other so much that we're not willing to do that? Because you see black men all the time who, you know, once, you know, black women all say once they become successful, they want to get a white girl or something like that. Well, a lot of times it's because, and this is from just things that I've heard, is just because white women or women of another race or African women or whatever are more supportive, and that they can get further in life with that particular woman because they're more refined, or they support their man better. They do certain things, and you know, it goes back to, like you were saying, like that pain that we have is so deep on so many different levels that it's kind of created just this insecure type of woman. We have so many daggone issues. Like, at what point are we going to try to fix those issues? Can they be fixed, or are we just completely done with each other? You know, it's a huge problem. I'm going to go to I think this is Brother Byron on the line. Peace, Byron. How are you?
Peace, Sister Kim. We're good, thank you very much. We're very good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Great.
Good. Nice topic tonight. I'm enjoying it. Thank you. So I've got a few comments on the discussion thus far. The first one, I've been making notes. I'm really competent tonight, right? I've been making notes as we've been going along. The first one is around our language. So we often refer to ourselves as black rather than African, right, or African American or African British. And we also use language such as calling somebody fair, as to say the person has got light skin. So on those two terminologies, I think that we may be imprisoned in some way to keep referring to ourselves as black, mentally imprisoned. We're African people, so we should describe ourselves as such. It is my view. I sometimes say black, but in my essence, I really want to say African all the time. So I think that's what we should try to aspire to. There's no shame in saying African,
right?
And we should have self-pride and self-love to properly describe who we are as a people. When we go on to say the word is fair, so fair is as the discussions were going, fair is from an old Saxon word. It's derived from an old Saxon word, and it actually means beautiful. So in our language, when you describe somebody as fair-skinned, the essence of that word fair is actually beautiful. So when you say fair-skinned to dark-skinned, we're saying beautiful to dark-skinned. So we're not making a comparison. We're putting a claim that when we say the fair-skinned person, we're saying that they're beautiful. And I think that kind of reinforces some of the dynamics that we see in society, where there's an increasing number of relationships which are cross-cultural. In the UK, for one, it's an increasing phenomenon, and it's nearly, I would say in about 10 years' time, 50% of the African people in the UK will be with partners outside of their race. So it's an increasing phenomenon here. I just really wanted to make those couple of points on language. Now, when it comes to the rites of passage, now this is a really big deal. This is a really big deal for me as a parent. I've been blessed with 6 children, and I consider that their development is a major part of my reason why I am alive. Their appropriate development through to adult life is a key function for me. And I was looking online, and I saw different things from 5 stages of manhood, 6, but the one that resonated with me most was 7, for a number of reasons. First of all, as we know, 7 is the number for Yemanja, for mother, the Orisha Yemanja, who is the mother of the fishes, the mother of the majority of us. And within the 7 stages of manhood, it refers to birth, infancy, adolescence, young adulthood, senior adulthood, old age, and then transitioning to the ancestral realm. Those were the 7 stages. Now, I feel that I have a particular responsibility with my young men on the first 4. And I'm making this very clear distinction between young men and young women, because I feel that the responsibility of raising my sons appropriately through the rites of passage falls squarely on my shoulders, but with the support of my wife. Mm-hmm. Conversely, when it comes to raising my daughters, that falls on my wife's shoulders with the support of my soul. And in that support, it means, can I fetch, can I carry, can I do this? Not to get involved, because the mysteries of womanhood have never been revealed to me. I am not bright enough to, or cheeky enough to even ask the mothers or the EME to show me that, because it's none of my business. I've come onto this earth as a man, and I want to be enlightened as a man. And the mysteries of womanhood are, in my view, for women to define and to manage and to lead on. So for me, it's very important that so within my son's rites of passage, for example, so I will get readings from Trifuria on my family. And if any matters come up regarding to my children, they will be attended to. So there's a spiritual development that I'm responsible for. And in that, I will ensure that they understand who the Orisha are, understand how to acknowledge and salute their ancestors. They help me around the shrine, etc. With the 2 middle boys now, they can recite the Odu. They're starting to draw the Odu and mark them and understand the light dark within the Odu. And we're just going through some basic steps so they will have a level of understanding, so that when they are young men and willfully they will adopt and embrace the tradition because of their choice, they'll be in a situation where they've been appropriately grounded. But to support the spiritual development, I'm expecting to be able to do practical things. So in the first formative years, they might have watched me work on the farm or change the car or deal with the car and so forth, or do the decorating. But as they are becoming older now, they are getting involved and developing skills and know-how on how to deal with machinery and deal with the house and, DIY and deal with the land and so forth. So those are particular things that I am working on with my children. This show is really good, actually, because it's actually forcing me to actually think about it in more specific terms. Right. So I was thinking, okay, so when my middle boys are 14, I want them to be able to prepare a room for decorating.
Okay.
Sand down, fill, and certain milestones that I want them to be able to change a wheel maybe, or change the engine oil. Do some practical things around the house so that they will be responsible and able men when they, in time, will have their families. So it is actually forcing me to do a bit more thinking around what they will need, not only spiritually but practically,
right,
along those particular milestones of male development.
Right, because again, that's one of the things that I was speaking of earlier. Like, there's so many components to this, to these different phases of manhood or womanhood. You have, like you were saying, not only practical things that we should be able to do, but we also need support emotionally. Like, emotionally and biologically, you got all these different things going on, internally with your body and all this other kind of stuff as well, with women, and men as well. You have, just emotional development and things like that too. And I think that is so important, whether you do that with a cultural base, whether you design it for your own family, like it needs to be done. Women are at a point now where it's so critical, and men too. And it speaks to what Dietrich was saying and Sister Tasha earlier about, just mating with each other now, or, dating and marriage and things. Like, it's so, things are so screwed up and so messed up at this point. Like, do we have the patience to help each other through it? Do we just, give up and say, like, go with these movements, men going their own way, women going their own way? Have we gotten to that point to where we're just completely fed up with each other? So I think it's something that we definitely need to think about and consider. The spiritual initiation into these mystery systems and things like that, that's cool, but there's so much that needs to come before that. And I feel like if we kind of get those things straightened out first, you may not even need these initiations like you think you need. You know what I mean? Like you think you should. I'm going to pick up this call real quick, Brother Byron. I'm going to come back to you, or just chime in whenever you need. 817.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. 817.
Greetings.
Peace.
Greetings. Hey,
Greetings,
everyone.
Sister Sequoia. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well. Good.
Good. I guess I just wanted to add to the conversation. I feel like it might be a waste of time to have like black men and women like going back and forth as far as like how we hurt each other, because I feel like we all know why we're messed up at this point. And this is, it's just like the result of the Western, culture or whatever, and with their wicked magician skills, they really done, they've done a number on us. And I feel like the only way to break the curse is to unify internally first. It's like, how we're going to unify with one another when we don't even love ourselves. It's like, how you going to love a black man when you don't even love yourself? So it's like, and it kind of makes me think, it's like tying it back to the show last Sunday, God Demons, that she did. I feel like he was talking about when people decide to take like the long way around resolving their problems by using the spiritual realm as a means to resolve the challenges they face, and just facing the challenges like head on. And you should be facing the spiritual realm that you wouldn't do in the physical realm, because you're being passive aggressive, and with your ego. And it's like this show couldn't have come at a better time for me. It's just like confirmation, because I've been really focusing on, facing my problems in the physical by, improving my character. Because like I mentioned in one of the shows before, I was trying to use spirituality to run away from my issues. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just facing demons there and here. So it's like I might as well just, do the work and get it over with. So that's what I started to do, recently. And so I just kind of wanted to give my testimony, because I'm on this thing where it's like, okay, I realized that it's a self-love problem. Like, I don't love myself, like that shit stuff. And I feel like a lot of women can't relate to this. So I'm like, okay, I just need to get to the root of the problem. Like, I need to develop that love for myself. So, I just decided to, work with Ogun and Oshun to develop self-love, encouragement, strength, because I'm also a very fearful person. So I've been sleeping with an emerald crystal and a clear quartz crystal under my pillow for a while now. For the emerald to strengthen my heart chakra. And I had a dream last week, which is similar to the dreams that I've been having for like the past 2 years. I just been running, just running away from things. And I started to become, lucid and consciously aware in the dreams. And I still, even being conscious, I still wasn't brave enough to stop running. Because I just told myself, okay, to turn around, you have to face what it is that you're doing, but I couldn't do it. So I felt like it wasn't until I started aligning myself in the physical that I was finally able to turn around and stop running. So in this dream that I just had, I was turning around to run, and when I started to run, I became conscious in that moment, and I was like, okay, here's your chance. Go ahead and turn around, and face this thing. And, the woman in my dream was pointing a gun at me, so I'm like, okay, this is like one of them fearful dreams, and it felt so real. But I turned around, and I just, I faced it, and, I was like, it's just a dream, I was just going to see what happened. And so when I turned around, I kind of just put my hands out, and I was just, so calm. I was just no. I just said no, this is going to happen. And then the dream just dissipated. Everything just turned white. And then I just felt like an energy, in the middle of my chest. It just felt so, I don't know, it was just interesting. I felt like an energy, from, in the middle of my chest, it felt really warm. And I started to, cry in that space. And I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't awake either. I don't know what it was. Everything was just white. And so I was like, okay, it's time to wake up. And, and I was telling my husband what happened. And I was like, I feel like my heart chakra opened up. Or something happened with that center. I don't know what it was, but I just felt something happened. And I just got coached and everything because I felt like, okay, me finally facing my fears in the physical realm, I was finally able to also align myself in the spiritual too. And it kind of, I feel like the show, that I listened to keep, I feel like it was really speaking to me in my situation as far as what I'm going through now. And so I've been getting all confirmation. So I just wanted to share that, and I hope that it, helps somebody. And I feel like it does start with internal feelings, and I feel like a lot of people don't want to deal with it. A lot of people are running away from it, and they want to focus on, other things. It's okay, let's encourage people to do more healing. It's I feel like we're the mothers of the earth, so we're the nurturing aspect. We're supposed to be encouraging men, women, and children to heal themselves. Let's heal all this pain. Let's get, how can you move anywhere? Everybody's still hurting.
Yeah.
So it's I feel like, I guess us as women, I feel like it's our job to heal everyone, heal the children, heal the men, and that's internal, and pulling our power from out of us and putting that power onto the whole community, onto the whole, race of people. So, and I feel like we're the most powerful. We're supposed to do our magic or whatever, and and use that on our people for healing. So that's just my, instinct.
Beautifully stated. I think, I'm kind of at that point with you too. We both have been hurt. We're both aware of each other's hurt, but to argue about it is almost like trying to justify, well, my hurt is bigger than yours. So when Dietrich's saying, we should get together and talk about it, it's will that really accomplish anything? Because I feel like that's the stage that we're in, with these videos and things on YouTube, men complaining about women, women complaining about the men. It's like we're competing, trying to justify, well, my hurt is bigger than your hurt, so you got to come over to my side. Well, no, y'all hurt us more, so y'all need to come over to our side. It's just this back and forth, and no one is moving forward. And like you said, I think it starts with this internal thing. And as far as the spirituality goes, like you say, I think we all kind of just go from spiritual system to spiritual system, trying to fix our stuff, but we can't. But we're not identifying what the problem is, because most of the time our issues are more based in, like you said, being a woman or being a man, and these different phases of our life and the different things that we go through. the spiritual part helps us to relate a little bit better. I know when I study different female archetypes in different systems, to me it shows just a range of different types of women that we have, that that exist. And I'm pretty sure, like, you can find where you fit in within one of those those female archetypes. The examples are out there. And like you said, it's like we have to heal internally, but I don't think that that's something that we can necessarily go through together, side by side, learning these lessons together. I still think that these things should, that we should be separated, because like you said, women are hurt, men are hurt, but like if women are the nurturers and we're supposed to be doing these types of things, like we need to get together and help each other heal. You know what I mean? And like you said, one of the biggest things is just facing those decisions that we've made, or dealing with all that stuff, just dealing with it and facing it. That's the hardest thing for us to do. And we think that, being initiated into some type of mystery system is going to solve it. And it's just not. I just really think that, like you said, we got to deal with that stuff separately. You need another woman there to help you get through some of this stuff. And it's because, again, we approach things differently. Men are just a lot more logical than women are. We're emotional, so we may need that hug, or we may need to cry, or we may need that pat on the back, whatever it is, along with the tough love. But, just that nurturing and just that support and guidance through these different phases, I think is so critical and so needed for women. And if we realize that a lot of the issues that we have, we all go through, we all face similar challenges. And so the cattiness and the backbiting and everything that we do to each other, if we realize that we are each other's support through those things and coming out of those things, like, we got to get over that. We really, really got to get over that. And again, like you said, it goes back to this insecurity, not being sure of yourself, not knowing yourself, not loving yourself. All that stuff is related, and a lot of it, whether women want to admit it or not, we keep saying that, a man hurt us, a man hurt us. For the most part, it's probably a woman that hurts us the most growing up. Because, your mother especially is the first woman you come into contact with. And then you have, of course, as you're growing up, you play with little girls. So it's like a lot of the hurt and insecurity that we have actually comes from stuff that we, crap that we got from other women before we even started to interact with men, And I don't think that we're honest about that. So I think sometimes our anger and hurt is misplaced, because we go through those stages of development, those early stages with women first. And for the most part, like, I can think back, and a lot of the issues that I have or had come from things that were directed at me from women, not men. That came later, but those things could have been avoided had I not had those horrible negative experiences with other women. So I think it is. You want to speak on that, Tasha?
Yeah, man. I mean, you just punched me in the face with that one, because I'm just thinking back now, and even being in the beauty industry, we really get made up and dressed up for each other, women, not so much other men. Mm-hmm. Because, for the most part, men can kind of care less. If your body is right, you got a nice booty, some boobs, your face is decent, they're going to talk to you regardless.
Let me tell you, I heard from a man, like, a man will choose the ugliest woman and the prettiest woman. Doesn't matter. It's the personality and the character. Like, it really doesn't. It really does. And then men find different things attractive about women. It's not all just physical. And I think that's something else we don't realize. Like, they're not just bumbling idiots who just need to see your breast and a butt. You know what I mean? Like, they may, you never know what a man finds attractive.
Exactly. So we do, hair and the makeup and all this stuff for other women. Oh, girl, yeah, like that weave is tight. You know what I'm saying? Yes. She accepts
and you heard
me.
Men,
now maybe we could be friends,
Right.
And as soon as we decide to switch up or do something different, girl, why you wearing your hair like that? Girl, I ain't going nowhere with you looking like that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you are, I think you may have stumbled up on something really good. It's really simple, but I guarantee you a lot of us women haven't thought about that, where we, low-key kind of tear each other down.
Yeah.
And so
not
by the time we get
it's out there. It's there.
It's out there, and some are, more upfront with it than others. Sometimes you could be getting insulted and not even know until you walk away, and that's happened to me before. Yeah. We're engaged in a conversation or whatever, and then it's over, and I'm driving home, and I'm like, this shit just stink.
Yeah.
It's a little delayed reaction. So, yeah, I think that is that's something to work with there. And that's what I'm saying, where we need to come together sincerely without, a hidden agenda or any animosity. And I know that's really hard for some women, to really just come open. Here's my flaws. Let me hear your flaws. I'm not going to judge you. Please don't judge me. Let's just come up with a solution on how we can fix this and, heal ourselves and heal each other without any nonsense going on in the background. And then I think we'll be, better for our men once we, get that out of the way.
Right. Yeah. I think that's so true. Like you said, I even see that with men now. Like you were saying, like, we don't dress for each other. We dress up for, women dress up for women, and sometimes men dress for, or I say boys, I don't even say men, or adult males, dress for other adult males or boys, because, when I look at some of the things that certain adult boys or men or boys think is fly or whatever, I'm like, you look like a little cartoon character. Like, we don't care about your vintage Jordans or whatever they are, and these jerseys and stuff that they wear, or baseball caps, or whatever. It's like, we're kind of looking for that classic, just when men really dress, when they really look fly, you know what I mean? Or, it's a very adult looking thing. And even as I was researching some of these topics, I was just looking at this picture of this man, and this was kind of floating around on Facebook for a while. And it was this guy. He's a teacher, I think it was, but he's an older man. He's great and everything. And all the women were just saying how attractive this man was. But it was like he was attractive, of course, like in the face, well groomed and everything. But he's wearing like skinny jeans and little tight pants and stuff like this. And I'm like, that's what we call fly now? I mean, like, is this, like a person that's 60 trying to dress like he's 20 or 30? Like, this is what's attractive now? And even, like you said, for the women, it's a really catty thing, because, like you said, we're pushing our boobs up and getting butt lifts and all this other kind of stuff and wearing all these revealing clothes, really to try to show some contrast between us as women. Like, my breasts are bigger, or my butt is better. And men aren't necessarily looking at that. Matter of fact, they probably prefer if you covered it up a little bit. They don't want it so out there, you know, especially if they're looking at you to be their woman. Like, they're like, if you you flaunt it for everybody. I don't want anybody to see that. This is for me. You know, I know there's a tradition, like, in some cultures, I know Muslim cultures, and I think even Jewish cultures, like, women don't even show their hair in public because, you know, when they get home, they can take it off for their man so that they can see how, you know, how gorgeous or beautiful they are. But for the most part in public, they're covered up. And so I think the problem is, like, women we don't like to be so uniform with each other because we want to show each other our differences, to try to scale some type of, well, I'm better than you because my hair is long. Well, I'm better than you because my hair is curly. I'm better than you because, you know, and we fight amongst each other, you know, and it goes back, like I was saying, if we really think about it, like, our anger is misplaced. We got issues with each other, not necessarily men, because those things could have been ironed out before you started dating, because we carried all those insecurities and issues and things. We carried all that stuff with us through adulthood. And then when we get into a relationship, then we're catty because we think some woman's trying to steal our man, and you like her better because she's light-skinned. You like her better because, you know, all this other kind of stuff. And we make fools out of ourselves by trying to adjust ourselves physically when that's not even the real issue, you know. I'm going to go to another caller, 407.
Hi, I'm really enjoying the show. This is Lori. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? You said Lori?
I'm good. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, indeed. I just wanted to let you know that I really resonated with what you said in regard to the fact that women are probably the ones who have affected us the most throughout our existence as women, as we came to recognize and understand that there was a difference between men and women. I love all my friends, otherwise it wouldn't be my friends, and the difference with that is that we get to choose our friends. Unfortunately, we don't get to choose our families. And a lot of us are getting out of toxic relationships. And I just find it startling and amazing that the first people that we are removing ourselves from are family members. The toxic relationships that they could be because of generational situations where mom and grandmother, you know, they just know it all. So they have every right to just, you know, lose track of any kind of filter and just call it like it is. And they've got feelings, so obviously they should know how other people feel, but they don't. And as women, I think it doesn't take much for us to bond together because everyone's situation is, granted, a little bit different, but the commonality or the core is that other women have hurt us severely.
Right.
Severely. And, you know, even the men that we're involved with, even they recognize it. Even they know. Because we recognize right offhand that they're affected by the men or the lack thereof, men in their lives.
Right.
And it's not so much of an us against women against men thing. It's kind of like, maybe I'm wrong, but it's a generational kind of thing where, you know, that was okay to mistreat people. I'll give you an example. Donald Trump right now, who's in the news, the way he conducts himself was perfectly acceptable in his generation when he was growing up. But because he's so out of pocket, out of touch with reality and what's going on now, and he's got social media to put him on blast, you know, he would have been a great president maybe 50 years ago, but now his kind of ideology just doesn't wash. And that's how he was programmed.
Right.
And the same thing, all of us are walking around and with the fact that our eyes are open and that we're all so sensitive and wanting to feel better and actually acknowledging our feelings, now we realize that, you know, for the most part, our relatives and older people, and I live in an older community with a bunch of older neighbors, they're not accepting of me simply because I have a job and I go to work. So there's just some generational things that just, you just have to accept people for the generation that they're in, and they don't have to be a part of your life if you don't want them to be.
Right. I think you're right about the generational pain. You know, a lot of us, you know, I was on our Monday calls, we talked about this once before, that, you know, we don't really, you know, we've kind of put our parents on this pedestal of being perfect, like they're superheroes or something. And it's not until you become an adult and you get married or you're in a relationship or you have children that you're now able to just look at them as a man and a woman. And you can see, okay, Mom, you were wrong about this. Like, this isn't how it is. Or, and then you start to analyze the women in your family, and you start to notice like a common dysfunction that may have been passed down to you, you know, unknowingly, because, you know, up until, you know, you started having, you know, your own family or dealing with issues, you know, feminine issues and things like that. Like, you don't see any wrong in that woman, or you don't see any wrong in that, you know, your father or your mother. You just accept it as true.
You've had no other exposure.
Right.
You've had no other exposure to measure.
Exactly. And that's why I was saying it's important, you know, that we start to kind of form communities of women so that your child can see, or your daughter or your son can see other expressions of manhood or womanhood, that you're not trying to be a carbon copy of your mother, because sometimes you can inherit those bad traits, or like you said, that generational dysfunction from your mother or from your father, and you think you're right, and you think the whole world is against you because it's something wrong with them, but really you just haven't really been exposed to anything balanced, or you haven't seen anything outside of your family. You know, you haven't seen different types of women. And that's why I was saying, like, through this, you know, spirituality, whichever form of spirituality you subscribe to, you have different types of women displayed in all of those religions or spiritual systems. And I think we got to kind of, you know, explore that a little bit and not, you know, just kind of look at ourselves, excuse me, kind of analyze ourselves differently and come out of that.
Yeah, leave those characteristics in the place where they belong. Just because someone covers themselves up doesn't make them any less of a good cook, any less funny, any less of a good friend, any less of a loyal companion, any less of a responsible mother. I mean, you know, I have been away from my nuclear family and out of their influence for like the last 25 years. That was the best move I ever made. Absolutely. Ever made. Would I turn back? No. My skin crawls just knowing that I'm going to go back home for the holidays. Because, I mean, everyone wants to keep you because they want to be comfortable. So they want to keep you in their comfort level. Whereas you want to be in your comfort level. And I've been exposed to cultural diversity for about 30 years. That's all I know. That's all I know. So whenever I see somebody, because I've lived overseas, because I've lived out of state, because I'm married to someone who speaks 4 languages with English as a not primary language, I have a heartfelt understanding of how much better other cultures and generations are than my own in certain areas. I used to think growing up America was the greatest, so on and so forth. I still do, government-wise. I still do in speed and getting things done. But in as far as understanding, like the African community, like the European community, they do so many things that are just so much better, slower, methodical, just so with so much more soul than Americans are. We're so cold. We're just so cold. And I would never voice that to my own family because, you know, my family and I'm from Mars and they're from Jupiter. And once I understood that, hey, they've never left Jupiter. They have never left Jupiter, not one international flight. So I'm not on the same playing field as them. I'm not better. I'm different. They're not.
Right.
They're not less. They are how they are, comfortable being, not wanting to open up, not wanting to grow, very, very comfortable in their little protective shell. But those are the first toxic people that I have had to remove from my life with my spiritual evolution and growth. Lived overseas for 4 years, was never called because it's a long-distance phone call, God forbid. So, I had to do all the calling. I'm back in the States, not in the state where they want me to live, and it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. So the one who had to change was me and build better community of friends and of people. And they're my husband's culture. They're different cultures. My friends are the melting pot. And I never know this until people come up and tell me, hey, your friends are Arab. And I go, oh, I didn't know that. And they look at me like I'm an idiot, but I don't know that. I don't have those kind of blinders that I would have had I not lived the life that I have lived.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. People are people, and I resonate with good people. There might be a Chinese lady who speaks very little English, but's got a heart of gold and always brings me all kinds of herbs to my house. I mean, I just look at her as Lee. I don't see any other thing. And I've been like that since I was a kid. I would show up with the Asian kids, and my dad would say, how do you get along with the Asian kids? And I'd say, what Asian kids? I've always been like that. I have always been close to spirit, and the spirit doesn't have any color, boundaries, borders, none of that. And that's why I love the fact that there are forums like this, because people, all you know of me is my voice, and my spirit comes across in my voice. All I know of you is your voice, and your spirit comes across in your voice. That's how I live. I don't live through my eyes. I live through what I feel and the vibrations of my heart. I've lived like that since I was a kid.
Yeah, I think something that you brought up is really important, and Chief touched on this before, is just as women, if we see that our model is messed up and has all these issues, how many of us have really gone out of our way to look at other cultures and look at other women and just see, well, how do they manage? Why is this particular group of women? Why are they more? Why are their families more intact? How do they deal with womanhood? How do they deal with these issues? We don't really examine our own culture deep enough to say, you know what, this isn't working. And I can go outside of American culture or, whatever culture you have. I can look at other models of women. It's okay to do that, to kind of, try to figure this thing out. I don't think we do that enough. I think we just focus on the pain so much, and we just really, really want somebody to validate our pain and say, to really just say it's not your fault is really what we want. But I think it's, again, it goes back to, women have to form healthy communities of women. Men have to form healthy communities of men. And this is something that we may have to just do separately for a while, because we're bringing our pain and hurt and we're, to the relationship and to the communities, and we're inflicting it on each other. And we're expecting men to kind of shut down being a man just so that they can validate my pain, and so that I can express myself the way I want to, when really, like I said, that pain is misplaced. We really got to kind of look at those, again, going back to that generational dysfunction. And honestly, just look at it objectively. Your mom's not going to stop being your mother. It's not saying that you have to hate her or anything like that. It's just, just look and say, you know what? Maybe you weren't a very good wife. Maybe that's why Dad left. Or, or maybe you didn't handle it the best way. I still, you're still my mother, still love you or whatever. You're my mother. I give you that respect. But that's not what I want to be. That's not the type of relationship I want to have. And I'm going to change that. I'm going to change that about myself because you passed it down to me. You gave that to me. Along, there was some good stuff you gave, but there was also a lot of dysfunction you gave me. And again, like I said, we got to kind of stop just bickering and arguing with each other over whose pain is the worst and trying to get validated for that. Laurie, if you'd like, you can just stay on the line and just come in whenever you like. I just wanted to say if any of you on the line would like to comment or give your perspective on the topic, the number is 347-945-7680, and just press the number 1 and I'll bring you in. I'm going to bring Dietrich back in. I had muted you for a minute, Dietrich, because there was some background noise.
Yeah.
But I just wanted
I'm out here in the bushes.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to bring you back in to see, out of everything that's been said, if you had any other comments or anything.
I mean, what everybody's saying is valid. I think what we're getting a snapshot of the people who really trying to bring about a solution to it. Because if you listen to who calls the show, it's married people. Everybody's married. Everybody has a family, I think, and everybody's older.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that not from a derogatory perspective, but I think I'm the youngest one on the line. And if I'm not the youngest one, I'm the only single one. Mm-hmm. So my perspective is coming from an individual that's dealing with single people. Now, I think what Brother Byron has said, you get to a point to where you become the king. And there's a lot of brothers who won't ever get to that point because of, first and foremost, they have internal issues that they have yet to deal with. A lot of men, a lot of young men, they look at it two ways. They either completely disconnect themselves from what's going on because they realize there's very little they can do. If you stand up and fight, you either get killed or financially castrated or just humiliated by your own people. Because one thing I will say about black people, and we're going to have to stop that, we are too quick to insult people. Like people who have done things with us. Because I remember in grade school, when we talked about Frederick Douglass, they couldn't get past his haircut. They're like, "Ooh, look at his head! Look at," we get caught up in stupid stuff like that. And I think that's a direct result of a direct product of the eugenic programming to only see the worst in yourself. Like we have been programmed to see the worst in black. So, you were saying that a lot of women are catty, and I forgot the sister that said that, but she said that women do stuff for other women and be low-key insulting each other and don't even realize it. But that's because a lot of black women have been conditioned to see the worst in each other. And we have got to stop that. Like, we really have got to stop that. Like, that's what I was wanting to speak to. And as far as, like, the whole swirl thing, once again, that goes back to those saying they say back home, white ice is colder. Mm-hmm. We have been programmed again to feel that whatever is European or whatever is white, it has to be more better than what we got because we can't possibly put something of value together. So when you don't value yourself, you're not going to value your complementary half. And I think David Banner was a keynote address of his tour. Well, of course, black people don't care too much about each other because we have been conditioned not to. And the ones that do care about black people get ridiculed. So like that's what I was thinking. Like, I think everybody has valid points, and as a single man, I'm starting to see what. I'm just starting to have marriage goals now. Like, this is the type of mindset you got to have, like Brother Byron said. I subconsciously, every man knows that, but in what capacity can you actually do it? Like, what capacity can you teach your son to be self-sufficient? What capacity can you teach your son to have self-control, not to be so driven by sex? Stuff like that. So, like, I'm taking it all in because, like I said, 90% of the people on this line are either married or older than me. I would like to see what more single people had to say, though. Because they're actually in the dating world.
Yeah, well, again, like you were saying, I think it still goes back to recognizing those phases of development. Not necessarily if you're, of course the young old thing comes in, but that goes with those phases of male development, phases of female development, where you get those lessons. You know what I mean? And earlier, I wanted to go back to something you were saying, because we're on this now, is about, just women screaming black men hurt me the most, or whoever, men hurt me the most. And men are saying, well, this y'all's fault. Women are cold, women are this, women are that. Or the conversation you were having with the conversation you were having with the young lady.
Oh yeah, that's stuff, yeah.
And I've come to this conclusion that for the most part, our hurt is misdirected. What do you think about that? I think some of the issues women are having with men really stem from issues they have with other women. I think it's really misplaced.
I mean, okay. I'm glad you said that, because, like I said, I deal with a lot of single and divorced women at work. Mm-hmm. And the reason I said we're gonna at some point we're gonna have to have a come to Jesus meeting about this, because there's stuff that men do to women. Well, young single black men. We, I'm not really concerned about general right now, but young single black men do stuff that women don't like, and they're not even aware of it. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of men aren't aware of how hurt a lot of sisters are, and it's generational hurt. It's subconscious hurt. So at some point we have to be like, look, when y'all do this hurts. Stop it. And the same thing with the sisters. Sisters don't. A lot of sisters, they really function from the paradigm of what they experience, and they have to inject their experience into what happened in order for them to understand it. Very few of them are depolarized enough to be able to look at it from both sides. If they can't feel what the person is talking about, they kind of like disconnect themselves from it. So I was telling the sister, I'm like, he did this, but why does he cheat on you so much? How did he get like that? I don't know, because he ain't this. No. What happened to him? Well, he had a big boil on his face when he was young, and they used to tease him about it. So we know that it's not just about him not thinking much about you. It's about him trying to validate his appearance through the women that he gets attention from. It's a reason men do the stuff they do. And a lot of sisters don't want to look at it, because once they're hurt, and I think Chief View had said this in one of his shows, that women treat their pain like their child. You don't want to let that child go. So you harbor that pain and keep it going, and that child becomes a badge of honor, like you said. Well, I've been hurt worse than you. Well, he cheated on me and had a baby on me. Girl, that ain't nothing. He cheated on me and gave me HIV. So what you talking about? You feel me? That type of stuff. Yeah. So, but why couldn't he be honest enough to tell you that he had it? What is it about his structural integrity that wouldn't allow him to come clean and be like, okay, yada, yada. Maybe because he didn't feel like losing you. Maybe because his mama left his dad and his dad was abusive to him, because that happened. So we have to get to a point to where we can come together and be like, okay, this is why this hurts. This is when you do this, it makes me feel like this. It's not even really you. It's some deep internal stuff that happened to me, that when you do that, makes me feel this kind of way. And when you consistently do it and you disregard my feelings about it, it makes me say, F you. I don't care. What's the point of me be doing right or of being this model citizen for a person who say, well, oh, you'll be all right. Why would I want to be around you like that? So that's what I was referring to, not to see who hurt who the most and why, but is the subconscious stuff that we do to each other that we're not aware that we do. We're going to have to start discussing that at some point, in my opinion.
Yeah. But do you think discussing it will really solve anything? Because go ahead.
No, I was saying, because it was like that with my ex. Like me and her had to do that, because she had a bad habit of just of gossiping on the phone in front of her son, her two boys. And what would happen is like, girl, black men ain't never gonna do this. Black men that he that. Black men can't do this. It takes, women, we just gotta do everything, yada yada. And it's this whole thing about what black men can't do. And I told her, I said, you might want to be careful with what you say around them because they will grow up thinking something's wrong with them. And the second that they get away from women who think like that, it's when you lose them. You know, and like, you know, because a lot of sisters are like, why are men so disrespectful? Men ain't this. Men that don't think nothing of women. Men are so misogynistic. I'm like, well, have you sat down and listened? Have you just sat in the back seat of a car and listened at a single woman talk about other women? Girl, she came in here, girl, she knows she was too big to be wearing that. Her toes hanging out the side of the shoe. She thinks she did. She always running her mouth, yada, yada, yada. And the son is hearing that. He's hearing all of this. So when he see her, mama said, you fat. Get your fat self away from me. Don't touch me. You know, they repeating what they hear from her. So women don't realize that what you say is so much more powerful than you think. Like a female could just be like, oh, well, I don't need you. Women don't understand the psychological ramifications when they say that. Like when you marginalize men, that's a subconscious trigger to make me be like, okay, what the fuck am I here for? I mean, what am I here for? If you don't need me, but you're saying I need you, then what reason do I have to stay in a relationship and love a person who really deep down in their heart don't think nothing of me? Women don't realize little stuff like that affects men. So it's stuff like that we're going to have to start being honest about and stop running away from.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to bring in
subconscious stuff.
I'm going to bring in, I think this is Brother Anwar. Peace, Anwar. How are you? Anwar, are you there? 813?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, hey, sorry, I had it muted. Hey,
how are you today?
Greetings. All right. I've been enjoying the show. I've been sitting back listening the whole thing, and I'm listening to Dietrich. And Dietrich, you have put in a lot of work, brother. I will not put. I will give you hands up and black power, fist up, all that good stuff because you've been putting in a lot of work, brother. And I see the work that you're doing. It's good, and you got a lot of good ideas that you're bringing to the table, brother. Like I said,
thank you.
We got to definitely exchange emails so we can get in contact with each other. But to add on to what you're saying, I am 39. I have an 18-year-old and I have a 7-year-old. Okay, I don't have a wife. I do have a friend, and more than a friend, more a partner. That we don't live in the same house. Okay. So I don't want to say I'm single because I don't believe in the concept of being single. I don't think there's ever a time that we are really single. I think it's just a dating term. It's saying that we're single because we're not married. But I found as of today now. Yeah, that's my boo. This is my boo. She's my boo. But I find that the relationship that I have with her now is very powerful, just the simple fact that I have intent and I have direction. I have a certain place where I have to put myself in, and I find her enjoying the fact that I'm there with that intent, with that progression. And I think that is really the cure for most of our problems. Yeah, we still have to have our conversations and talk, but the men have to be upright, and the men have to be intentful. The men have to have a plan, because if we're getting into these relationships where, once again, the men are lackadaisical, they're sitting back and they don't have any momentum to move forward or to do something inside of the community or inside of the world, it's very hard for a woman to relate into that vibration of nothing. You know what I'm saying? They'll just soak it up and then take that energy and use it for something else instead of being directed with the energy that man might bring into that woman's life. But for me, I've found my experience now being a lot more fulfilling than a lot of my other relationships, because now I have my intent. I see the things that she does, and she sees the things that I do, and I'm actually in the process of doing. So, just to add on to what you were saying about single men and so forth and so on, but I believe that our biggest problem is where the men are not being intentful and not standing on their throne, not standing on their own, to move forward with our families. You know.
And that's why I was really advocating a men's group, because here in Atlanta, you run into a lot of men. Who really don't really have a reason to live. Like, and I've run into that many times. You have to be super careful in a city like this where the morale is so low amongst the men, because what ends up happening is when you don't have anything to live for, you become dangerous. And I think when you don't have anything to live for, and you don't have that, you're not functioning from the paradigm of purpose. You will run into women, and you will just let them. You will inject your mess into them, and they don't trust that, or nor do they respect that. So that's why at some point the men are gonna have to come together and be like, bruh, what are you doing? Like, what's the goal? Because see, if she can't rely on you, then I can't rely on you. Because if you don't have a purpose for her, then anything I got going, you ain't gonna want to have a purpose with it either. You just want to be a part of it. And I don't have time for dead weight based off what I'm trying to do. So what you said, if we can fix that, then I think we can cure cancer, because that's really the big problem, not having a direction. That's why we have to have these male forums to start guiding these young boys who going down the path of saying either I want to do something because it looks good, or I want to do something because other people are doing it. So we as men, that's why I said this is a problem that the men are gonna have to fix. And the only type of men gonna fix it are the men who are actually doing something interesting enough where people can look at them and be like, okay, that's respectable what you're doing. How are you doing that? Well, this is how I started off. That's what we need. And once we can do that, we can cure cancer. Trust me.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, I'm going to bring... Oh, go ahead. I'm going to bring Brother Byron back in. I think his call had dropped, and 817. And you all can comment whenever you like. I was just picking you back up. I saw that your call dropped, so I was bringing you back. But go ahead, Anwar.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Is it me to speak for Brother Anwar? Sorry.
No, go ahead. Because I kind of lost my train of thought going around. But I agree with what Brother Dietrich said about that men need to do. They do need to step into that. Now, there is one thing that I will say also is that there's a lot of men or a lot of boys that don't know where they gotta go, and that's also a responsibility for us men to see those boys in a certain situation. They want to get out. They have a drive to get into a better place, to have proper guidance for those boys, no matter whether they're our sons or it's just people that we know in the neighborhood or community that needs our help. So I think as men, we have to always look for the young boys, the younger generation, to make sure that they can learn lessons from the stuff that we did wrong. We learned our lesson from the stuff that we did wrong. We can share that lesson with the young boys, and hopefully they can take that in with just a verbal conversation without them having to go through the same mistakes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Byron, you were saying something?
Yeah, I was listening. Brother Dietrich was talking about relationships and the difficulties. If I heard him correctly, some of the difficulties that he observes between single African men and single African women in the States, if I was hearing correctly. And what came to me when we were speaking, it was Chief referred to the fact that men are independent and women, men should be independent, and a man's calling is to be independent, and a woman's calling is to be dependent, and to have a man, because she wants to depend on a man. Okay, so I don't want this to come across as sister bashing, because I'm very careful not to get into the male-female bashing business. But from my observations in the UK, I often observe where the sister struggles to make themselves vulnerable within a relationship. So they feel that they have to have the same capabilities and capacity as a man, when in fact what they bring from their nature as being female is an additional quality to the relationship. And part of that quality is recognizing and acknowledging the fact that you want to be dependent on your man and making yourself vulnerable within that relationship. And conversely, when a woman does that to a man, the man's got to respect that and say, okay, so I've got an additional responsibility here because this woman is showing me her softer vulnerability, and it's not for the man to abuse that, but to respect that and honor that and take care of that. So, but I would say that within the West, we're often conditioned to believe that men and women should do the same thing, and men and women are capable of the same thing, and men and women's approach to life should be the same, when if we're looking at from an African traditional perspective, that's not the case. So that's just my comments on that.
Well, you know what? I think you're absolutely right. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to add something to what Brother DJ was saying about like us being old and married. I'm only 25, so I feel like that's young as well. But I am married. I am married, but I feel like I'm not coming from the perspective of the older generation. I understand what you're saying. I think the conversations, they do need to be had. Me and my husband talk about that type of stuff all the time, as far as like what we don't like, as far as like what men have done to, our experiences, with previous relationships. They'll tell me like, I don't like that women do this, and I'll say, I really don't like when men do this, and we talk about that type of stuff with each other. So we found out that after doing that with one another, that we realized, okay, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. So it's like we're not going to keep, saying that you did this to me, you did that. We've both been hurt. So we come to the realization that we do have to just do the internal healing, and you can express yourself and talk about that type of stuff, but you also have to do the healing too, because sometimes if you don't, you can think that it's something like intelligent, like I think men should be this, but it could be coming from like an emotional place from your past experience. It's not actually correct. So you're just talking like, I think this, I think that, but you're not healed yourself. You're not really solving anything, but just vocalizing how you feel. You're not really solving anything. So I think you have to heal so that you're not just spewing out dysfunction.
Right. I think that's really important. And Brother Byron brought up a good point about vulnerability. And I think, the older we get, as far as women goes, that comes from being younger, in your younger days when you were completely vulnerable and open to a man or to a woman, and you got hurt. You saw that the results from being vulnerable didn't necessarily pay off, and you got hurt, so you started to form this, little bubble of protection around yourself. And you found that, to avoid being hurt like that you started to shield yourself, and you started to, just kind of harden yourself a little bit so that you aren't vulnerable. So it's like, at what point as an adult woman or whatever, do you feel, for the women that are on the call, like at what point can you gauge whether it's safe in this relationship to be vulnerable? Because I feel like, like that first relationship you get into or second or whatever it is, women are vulnerable. And again, like I said, it goes back to these phases of development. And so initially, I think that a lot of women are vulnerable in the beginning, but may experience some hurt as a result of being vulnerable. So you start to harden yourself, in the next relationship. Then after that doesn't work out, you harden yourself again. Like you don't feel safe to be vulnerable, maybe. I think that has a lot to do with it. But going back to what Sequoia was saying, we can kind of go back and forth about why I had to be hard or why I don't want to be vulnerable and this kind of thing all the time, we can keep going on with that argument, but we're not getting anywhere. So, like, at what point does a woman say, okay, I'm in a safe place, I can be vulnerable, this is what I need to be? Because every experience that she has after that hurt has shown her that being vulnerable or dependent is not the way to be. Or she's left, without any protection or without being covered because she was so trusting or because she was so vulnerable or whatever the case may be. And I remember Chief speaking on that once before, how, going through these different phases, like, men need to realize, okay, a woman at this age, she's in this state. We got to be careful. You be careful about how you do this or how you engage a woman at this age, because she's at this stage of development or she's at that stage of development. Again, like I said, it just goes back to respecting each other's qualities and respecting each other's, the phases that we're in. But at some point, as a woman, you got to say, okay, I'm in a safe place. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be dependent. And too often we get to that point when we're so damaged or we've devalued ourselves so much that you're not even relevant anymore.
I think you have to just kind of go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish. I'm on my fault.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think as a woman, you kind of have to just throw the dice and put yourself out there. But at the same time, again, it is a little bit of weight on the men to provide that platform for us to feel like, okay, I can kind of let my guard down and, let him take the wheel, because it is hard for us, especially if you grew up in an environment where there's always been single mothers and single women, and they're constantly telling you, you got to do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let your guard down. You gotta be tough. You gotta be this strong black woman, and you just gotta handle it. You kind of have to just put yourself out there, and sometimes it's gonna be trial and error. And fortunately, but unfortunately, and again, I can only speak from experience. That happened to me and Jerome, my husband. We were almost 15 years in, and we broke up for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, during the first 3 months, I was totally upset with him. How could he, do this to me and be with somebody else and all that stuff. But again, the wise elder, the lady I was telling you about before,
mm-hmm.
she was like, and what did you do to contribute to this? Mm-hmm. And at first I was like, oh, no, she didn't. It was like, no, she didn't come at me like that after I told her what happened. And she was like, no, seriously, what did you do to contribute to this? Because you mean to tell me you've been with this man for 15 years and then all of a sudden that happened?
Yeah.
And now y'all not together and it was completely and totally his fault? Get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what really went down. And what really went down was, after all those years, and just to give you a little background, I didn't start driving until I was 32 years old. I'll be 40 in January. So prior to that, he was taking me everywhere that I needed and wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, our relationship was starting to get rocky a little bit. So I was like, okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get me a driver's license. I'm going to buy me a car. And that's exactly what I did. So now I got the license. I got the car. Now I'm out. You know what I mean? I'm going to the happy hours. I'm super social. Like I'm out here getting it in these streets. And it's like I totally dropped the ball because I'm thinking, well, he's here. You know, he's fine. He don't miss me no way, and he ain't going nowhere, so whatever. At the time, I'm working 3 jobs. He's at home with the kids. He's changing jobs like he changed drugs. So the roles were reversed, number one. Number two, we totally took each other for granted. I'm thinking he's always going to be there. He's going to look after these kids. I got this car. I got this license. I'm out here. And he's thinking she's a strong black woman. She holding down 3 jobs. We not going to get put out. Everything is all good. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, ain't nobody talking about how we really feel. You know, I'm not saying, dang, I wish you would just pick up the phone one time and call one of these bill collectors and handle this. I'm so tired of doing this. Mm-hmm. He's not saying, I wish you would stay your ass at home sometime and deal with these children. I'm tired of this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There was no love language. We're having arguments with each other unbeknownst to each other. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We're doing it internally every time we pass each other in the way. Hey. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Nobody's sitting down and talking about anything. And it took 6 months. It took for him to move out of the house, move to D.C. and live in some crap-ass apartment. It took me to be in that giant house by myself with 3 kids to realize, you know what? This is crap. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. we really need each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And so I had to humble myself. I had to be vulnerable enough to call him and say, come home, please, mm-hmm. because I need you. Yeah. And a lot of women don't want to do that because to them that's a sign of weakness. Right. You're no longer the strong black woman. Now you're needy. Mm-hmm. You're putting all your eggs in the basket for some man. Some man. That's the father of your children. Yeah. That's the man that you shared your life with and brought forth all these children. This is not some man. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to take accountability for your part in the mess. And that's hard, and it hurts. And sometimes it's even embarrassing. Like, dang, I really contributed to this. Not mm-hmm. completely letting him off the hook for what he did, but at the same time, what drove him to that? Right. He didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this. Something had to trigger that. Like we said, men, there's a purpose for everything that they do. And as women, we're thinking, oh, these men are so simple. You know, they're simple-minded. It takes nothing to please them. Like, they're just dudes. You know what I mean? And they're really not. They could be just as complex as we are, just in different ways. Yeah. But you have to, us as women, we have to take accountability for what we're doing in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And there has to be a love language. We have to learn to talk to each other and communicate, and not as soon as something hits the fan, you out with the claws. And like Patrick said, you on the phone talking about this dude like a dog on the street. Yep. No. Yep. And just to add, I remember Chief going over some statistics. For the most part, divorce is initiated by the woman. You know, we're the ones that up and leave. Men pretty much just deal with it. They stay. Yeah. They really do stay. Like, they may check out emotionally or or get fed up, but they
they don't normally initiate the split up or the divorce. And I don't think women.
No, they don't.
I don't think women even think about that as much. Like you were saying, the whole thing about accountability. We just feel, we've been mistreated. He was wrong. I'm out. And then you get out there in the world and you see how that was the wrong thing to do. Or now you got to work three jobs, like you said, or got to work so much to try to cover the bills and feed the kids and be there and become this so-called strong black woman. And then it goes back to another thing I heard you say once is that, again, not having that wise feminine support, you got a bunch of hurt women in your circle cheering you on. Yeah, girl, forget him. You can do this yourself. While really, when you go home at night, you're crying, you're heartbroken, and you're tired. You're exhausted. You realize you can't do this by yourself, but you don't want other women to look at you and say, you weak. You went back to that man. You did this. We got to get we got to surround ourselves with better women.
It's got to get better. And you're right about that statistics, because even though we were separated for 6 months, that man would not leave me alone. He would not leave me alone. He was still coming to the house every weekend. Some weekends the kids weren't even there. They were at the grandparents' house or whatever. I'm like, why are you here? I'm just going to be up in here. And I'm like, well, I'm leaving, and it was that whole thing. And you just, ladies, I know it's hard. It is so hard to, and I don't like the word submit. I do like vulnerable better, because to me, submission it's almost demeaning, not to submit, but to really put your whole heart on the table. And I think sometimes that's what men want. That's how they're measuring your loyalty to them. I want to see if this woman can put her whole self on the table for me. You know what I'm saying? I could be wrong, but I feel like that's how they feel.
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure. Go ahead.
Men want power. We give our love for power. The time that we are sitting there saying, feeling like we're powerless and we're not receiving power back from our mate, is the time that all the problems start happening. So I understand what you're saying, but I don't really truthfully agree with it. At the end of the day, yes, we do love, but we're loving you because we're powerful with you. Now, in this society, I can see the reason why men legally stay with their wives or try to keep the marriage going, because we, in this system right now, are the ones that pay most of the costs from family issues, from divorce to child support. But it's hard to sit there and say that we're going to be in a relationship where we're not feeling empowered in. And that's what I was just telling Brother Dietrich, is that since I have placed out my intent and placed out my mind state of where I want to be, my relationships with my boo is a lot better than I've had in previous relationships. And that just goes into knowing who I am and knowing what position I play. Just like women and men should know the positions that they play. And then when they get inside of relationships, they should have conversations about how the house is going to be held. And we lack those conversations. We jump into relationships too fast without even having any kind of investigation on our mates, or even having any kind of real conversation about the person and how they respond and how they act and how they're going to feel in this type of situation. So, but one thing I want to address too is that listening to the whole show, there's one thing that, and this is going on with the theme of this month that Chief is talking about with magicians. A lot of these problems that we're having are demons. A lot of the problems that we have in our relationships are our personal demons that we have developed through, once again, going past that vulnerability stage. Because there was a time when men and women were vulnerable. Now, probably men probably lost faster than the woman did. But out of that vulnerability came some of these demons. And then the more we exposed ourselves, more demons came out. Mistrust being one of them. You know what I'm saying? So, just relating it onto the topic of this month, because I'm really into it. This month's topic is very seriously, a serious thing for me. Is that going into it is that understanding that these demons are always going to be there. How are we going to utilize these demons in our life? Are we going to let them conquer us, or are we going to let them stay where they need to be and make sure that we understand that when they pop up and they put their face up, where we understand who's looking at us? So
I think that's a good point that you put out. Not only are women, is there a point where women are vulnerable and hurt, men are vulnerable. There's a point where they put themselves out there too and get shut down by another woman. And therefore, they harden themselves against other women as well to protect themselves. So I think it goes both ways. It's like we can keep going back and forth about whose pain is greater, or we can just agree that we've both been hurt. Now let's work on it. So again, going back to those phases and having the appropriate communities to kind of usher us or initiate us into these different phases and tell us what to expect, how to behave, what's changing, what we need to leave behind, what we need to heal. Again, it's just so important, to have that. And so we've actually gone over the show, over the 2 hours, but I just want to encourage everybody on the call to kind of look into that a little bit more, look into those phases of manhood and womanhood. And whether you do it with your own family or within a community where you can have more people to kind of help you along with that, like that's something that we really, really need to do. And for the women that are on the call or that are listening, I just want to reiterate that you can go to anewlifeglobal.org and fill out the Join Our Community section and specify that you would like to be on the call on our Google Hangouts that we have every Monday as support for the women. And again, I know Chief is working on something for the men. I'm not sure if it's rolled out yet or if it's organized yet or not. But there are, we just got to do it. It's time out for, arguing each other's side. We can recognize that and deal with that hurt and those issues within your group and just start to heal from it. Like, you can gripe and all that kind of stuff, but do it within your group instead of back and forth with each other, because it's not getting us anywhere to just keep going back and forth with each other like that. That's what, an older or a wiser woman comes in, or that's when a wiser man comes in and kind of helps you dissolve some of that pain and dissolve some of that hurt and heal from it and move on. So we just really got to move on at this point, because we hate each other. We don't like each other very much. And it's like, when you're in a relationship and you love that other person, but you really just don't like them anymore, that's the part, that's when it's hard to come back from the relationship. When I just don't even like you anymore, like I can respect you, we had children together, or we were together for 15, 20 years, whatever, but I just don't like you. When you get to that point where you don't even like each other anymore, it's hard to come back to that.
I've been at that point. I agree completely with that one. I'm not, my youngest son's mother, I really don't like her at all.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that came together, but you know what? But I do. But let me be real. I don't like her, but I do respect her, and I do give her a little bit the credit that she needs for giving me my child. Do I live in the same community or thought or culture that she lives in? Hell no. I would never put myself in that situation. But,
when you get to that point to where you don't like each other, it's like unrepairable. It's like I don't even like you. Yeah. And I feel like, you know, with some of these movements, the going our own way movements and things with men and women, it's like that's the point that they're at. It's like, I don't even like you anymore. Like, so, you know, we don't want to get to that point to where we just don't even like each other. You know, we gotta try to heal ourselves before that. And in conjunction with the whole thought of initiation into systems and things, you got to realize these things are culturally based, which means sometimes they're race based. And so not liking each other and just completely giving up on each other, you got to consciously think, like, I am, by making that decision to step outside or whatever, you are contributing to ending that racial, you know, ending that race or extincting that ethnic group. And so when you're saying you want to be initiated into an African system, but you don't want to be with an African, like, those two don't gel, or you don't even like African people. Like, those two don't mix. They don't go together. So you got to consciously kind of be aware of that too, because you have people like that want to be part of an African system or whatever. They don't even like African people. So, you know, we got to be careful to, you know, when we, you know, deal with these kind of issues, that we don't get to that point to where we're just like, you know what, I don't even like you. I just, as a person, I don't like you or anybody that looks like you. But I respect your culture, you know. Like those two.
Kim, I got an update for you, Kim.
Okay, go ahead.
62-day fast. I had a drastic failure yesterday.
Uh-oh. What happened?
62-day fast. I have not smoked a cigar since 21st until yesterday. And yesterday I smoked two of them in the car.
Were they like really good ones?
Hard.
Nah, you know what? I smoked the first one and I felt so guilty smoking it. So I threw it out the window. I smoked like half of it and threw it out the window. And then I had two of them that came with the pack, and I smoked the second one. I threw the second one out the window too, man. I felt so guilty. I still feel guilty. but believe it or not, I do have accomplished I've reached a point where I'm not smoking in the car like that anymore. I don't smoke at all. Only time I smoke has been like on the weekend, last Sunday, and I was smoking up my herbal spliffs.
Okay.
I've learned a lot about the herbs and the smokable herbs that you can use other than tobacco.
Yeah.
Now I still use tobacco now, but I will tell you, there's some better herbs out there that even taste better and put you in a lot better mood. I will put it out there just like that.
Oh boy! Well, you know, at least you respected the pack. You went ahead and went through all three when you broke it. Yeah. You got to make sure, like you said, when you break it, make it worth it, at least, you know. Right. Sorry to hear that. But you did accomplish something. You did realize, you know, you did have some transformation throughout that journey. So that's good.
Yeah. No, but it's still, I'm now, like, even right now, I'm driving around working, and I don't even have the urge to smoke a cigar or smoke something while I'm driving. You know, my car actually smells good. I got like one of those little tree things going here. It's got to smell like nice pine.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good, Anwar. Good. Well, try to stick to it. You know, stick to it. Yeah. You'll make it.
Yep. Yeah. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and close, and I'm gonna again try to lengthen this out a little bit. I heard the show last Monday. When I left, she said I cut everybody off quick. So I will try to elongate what I have to say before I close out the show. And thanks, Tasha, for holding it down. I heard them too call me a silverback. Say what? Kim's a silverback. Yeah. So, we gonna stick together. We all together. Sure.
I'm sorry to cut the humour, but I'm very aware that we've got brothers and sisters that are really suffering in Haiti at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just asking that everybody just keep them in their thoughts and affirmations. If you can't send money, then you can send affirmation.
Definitely. I do know, I spoke with Sister Michelle. She was in Florida, and she was saying that her family was safe. You know, they didn't get hit that hard by it. But, yeah, Haiti, this is another hard hit for Haiti. So definitely keep them in your if you pray, if you're one of those prayer warriors, keep them in your prayers, keep them in your affirmations and in your rituals, so that they can recover from that, because this is like the second devastating blow to them. So definitely don't want to forget about that. Thank you, Brother Byron, for bringing that up. Okay. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close. But I just want to reiterate the women's group on Monday. If you want to be a part of that, make sure to go to newlifeglobal.org to sign up. And the men's, you can send your questions to questions@ournewNation.org if you have questions about the men's group. Like I said, I'm not sure when that's going to roll out or start or how it's going to be organized or anything, but maybe Chief can get you all some information about that, so we can get that the men situated too. But it's definitely needed, and we're just like at a critical point now. Every time I hear about it, it hurts me a little bit, because I'm thinking about, like I said, the end of African people. Like, we keep talking about African spirituality and how great these systems are, but if we're not mating or we're not together anymore, that's going to be the end of it. You can't have one without the other. So let's try to fix it before we get to that point to where we've just completely given up on each other and we just don't even like each other anymore. I think it's so important. And again, for the women, we gotta get better. We just gotta get better. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close and remind you all to come back and check us out on Thursday, same time, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern. The number's the same. So we'll catch you all on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.
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 Peace, everybody.